Good morning, Rabbi. Good morning, Chavra.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning today's three prakim and Rambam, Hilchos Shavuos, prakim Dalid, Hey, and Vav. Beginning with Perek Dalid. Perek Dalid will give us many details about the first of the four categories of oaths that we began with in the series, the oaths known as Shvuas Pitoi. Specifically, a person makes an oath not to eat. We have to define what is the definition of eating, what is eating. We're going to have many scenarios where we will be machalik, we will divide between different items in an oath, making them into two oaths, as we'll see. We're going to learn the big rule of ein shavua, chal al shvua, and exceptions to the rule. And we're going to have some very unique conditional oaths. Perek Daled has 22 halachas, beginning with halacha aleph, says the Rambam. If a person makes an oath that they won't eat anything on a specific date, and then they go ahead and they eat, but they eat less than a kazayis, says the Rambam patur meaning both, as we learned by Shvuas Bitui, the mezid malchus, patur from the malchus, the shoygig karben oil v'yored, patur from the karben. Because the word eating never will refer to that which is less than a kazais. And he will be very similar to the person that, God forbid, eats a half a shear of nevelas or treifas v'chayotze bahen, that even though it's taka asad min ha'torah, but you will not get punished. However, I take an oath that I will not eat this substance, this thing, and the person ate that, chayev, even if that which he took an oath about was only in the size of a seed of a mustard, right, or even smaller, he will also be chayev. Because since he said davar zem, even though he used the words oichal, but he specified this, and if the this was little, he meant that included in the shvuah. Halacha base, nishbash lo yitel klum. If a person took an oath that he won't taste anything, the words are anything, and the key is that he didn't use the word achila. Achila means kazayas. Ti'ima means tasting, not eating. Then, yes, even if he eats the most minute amount, he will be chayiv. Right, he did not mention the word achila. Halacha gimel. If a person took an oath not to eat today, and this person ended up drinking, chayiv. Why? Because sheshisiya b'chlal achila. Because drinking is included in the eating, and lefikach, and therefore, since shesiya b'chlal achila, im achal v'shasa. If a person both ate and drank, now we're going to have an interesting leniency. He's only going to get one set of findings if he was a mezid, or only one chatas if he was a shoygig, right? Similar to a person who swore not to eat, he ate and he ate again. So what's the rule? That if he ate and ate again, but it's all behelem achas, he's only going to be a chayiv one carbon. Or if it's bemezid, if there was only one hasra, even though he did two acts of eating, he's only going to be chayiv one set of malchus if there was one forewarning. So since shesiya b'chlal achila, even though he did eating and drinking, it's like eating and eating. Halacha daled. He swore not to drink. He only spoke about drinking. Nowadays, he's allowed to eat because it doesn't go the other way. Eating is not included in the word drinking. Now, how much does he have to drink to be chayiv? So by eating, we began the perek by a kazayis. So the Rambam says, the amount has to be of a revius, like all of the other prohibitions. For example, yayin lenazir is only asr when you have a revius, and b'chlal by nedarim And by Shavuos, the rule is halech achad loshen b'nei adam. And people, when they speak about drinking, they also mean only that amount or more, not less. Halacha Shavuos, person swears, I will not eat today. Now the person ate many different types. Or a person takes an oath not to drink today. And he drinks different types of beverages. Also, we don't say that different types are machalik to the carbon. No, same thing as we said before. If b'mezid there was only one hasra'ah, if b'shoigig it was all behelamachas, even though there were many minim, he's only chayv one. Even if he said even if he specified when he verbalized his oath, I swear that I will not eat today meat, bread, and legumes, right, or beans, and v'achal hakoil einoy chayav ela achas gevaldik, because he meant not to eat anything, and he ate many minim. He violated one oath. However, one second, and v'kulam mitztarfen lekazayis fakir, since they are all included in eating, goes both ways. So even if he only has a kazayis, when you put together a little bit of meat, a little bit of bread, a little bit of beans, gavaldik, it's all included in the eating. He ate a kazayis, he's going to be chayv. However, halachavav, if he says, I swear not to eat and not to drink. Now we just said that eating, the word eating automatically includes in it drinking. So his specifying drinking is on the externally superfluous, but it actually accomplishes something for it not to be superfluous. And he ate and he drank, now he'll be chayiv twice. Why? Because sin, so there was no need for him to mention drinking. And since he added something, why did he have to add those words? He's revealing that his intention, that when he said eating, he did not have drinking in mind. If not, why would he have to repeat drinking? In other words, it comes out that this person, Kinishma, Taka, he made two separate oaths, so to say. Now will be chayiv shtayim. Halacha zayin. Gevaldik. If a person says shvua shaloi oichel pas chitim, pas oidim, upas kusman. Now, and he ate of all three. Chayiv al kolachas v'yachas. Why is that? Because he didn't need to repeat the word pas. Even if he wanted to specify the different types of grains, he could have said shvua shaloi oichel pas chitim v'sa oidim v'kusman. Pas el lachalek. If someone was nudging his fellow in a good way, come eat by me. And he tells him, boy, you should say, come drink with me, wine, milk, and honey. And he responds, the guy doesn't want to go over there, but he knows that his friend will only stop inviting him if he makes an oath not to eat it. So he said, Shvua, she'eni shoysi yayin v'chala b'dvash. He specified each one separately. Why? No, whenever there was no need to give the specifics, we understand that each specific is to be machalik, each one as an oath b'fnei atzmai. Why was it not needed? All he needed to say was, Shvua she'eni shoysi klum. I swear that I won't drink anything. I swear that I won't do what you're saying. And since in other words, anything, there has to be a need, there has to be something extra in which we understand that there was no need for that, for us to interpret that addition, that repetition as a machalik in the shvua. Lefikach, and therefore, now let's go further. Since we view each one separately, unlike when we said before, when a guy stam says shvua that I'm not going to eat basar pasu kitnius, mitzad echad you only chayiv one, mitzad sheni they're mitzad if it's all together, it's the same tzad. However, over here, since it's each one as a separate oath, mitzad from zem, and therefore you have to have a kazais of each one. It's like, for example, God told us you can't have chaylev. God told us you can't have dam. If a person had the kezayis only by combining them both together, he won't be chayiv malchus for neither of them. As we explained in Hilchos Machalos.
Does this only apply to his friend's house since he was trying to get rid of him only?
No, to anyone. Stop. Just a mashal. Okay. I swear that I won't eat this bread. Or he says, I won't eat it. Now, he doesn't mean that he's only going to be in violation when he eats all of it. Didn't mean that. Same rule. Even if he only ate a kazais, he's going to be chayiv. However, when he says, I'm taking an oath that I will not eat it up. I will not eat it up. Means that I'm only in violation when I eat all of it up. Now, what happens if he says both? He says, right? Or as we just said, that would be machayif him even by eating only a kazayis and va'achola. So then enachayev eina achas. Hold on. Shvua shelo yichlena means all of it. I'm chayiv only for a kazayis. Then he made another oath. I'm chayiv, which implies only if I eat all of it. Did the second oath add anything? So now we're beginning the topic of ein shvua chala al shvua. The second oath added nothing. I'll tell you why. Because if I'm not even allowed to eat a kazayis, then certainly I cannot eat up all of it. So when I added, I swear I won't eat all of it, I was already prohibited because of the first oath. The second oath, that's not adding anything, is bechlal not chal because of the rule in shvua chal al shvua. So even if the guy ate up the whole thing, he's only chayiv one for the first oath. Take an oath I don't want to eat today. Then he makes a specific oath on this bread. And he ate all of it on today. He's also only chayiv one. Second oath did not take hold because the second oath didn't add anything. He already made an oath not to eat anything today, which included already this bread. If a person makes two oaths, if the second oath is not adding anything, then we apply the rule, ein shvua chala al shvua. And if a person violated, even though they made two oaths, they're only going to be chayiv for one. However, if first he says, I swear I won't eat all of it. In other words, he made an oath which only brings about the violation when you eat all of it. And then in the second oath, he said, shelo yochel klum, or shelo yochel kikar zu. Both of these expressions even prohibit the kazayis. Now the second oath added something to the first. You know what we say? We say that both oaths are chal, meaning that if the guy ate up all of the bread, he'll be chayiv too. Because if both shvuos are chal, you got it? So then, even though he already violated when he ate the kazayis, he made another violation also when he ate up the whole bread. That was, he violated the first oath when he finished the whole bread. And now, so that's something that added, the second oath added something to the first. Even only because I see chayev. So since the second oath is also chal, if you ate up the whole bread, you violated two oaths. You ate up a kazayis and you ate up the whole thing. Another example of a shvua, which is called a koilon. Shvua shelo yochel te'edim. I swear that I won't eat te'edim, I won't eat figs. And then the guy says, I swear that I won't eat figs and grapes. In other words, the second oath added. So once the addition is chal on the anavim, it's also chal. Another oath is chal on the te'edim. So if this person now eats te'edim, he'll be chayiv shtayim. Since there was something that the second oath added to the first shvuas koilel, it's very similar to the rules that we had. And isur chalal isur, but isur koilel, isur moisef. Here, same thing with shvua. Shniya alo anavim also chala ala te'enim. And therefore, ben eschayv b'shtei shvuos, as we learned in Machalas Isuris, when it comes to Isurim, like we just mentioned, and Isur Chalal Isur, there we learned the three exceptions, but Bas Achas, Koilol, and Moisef, we're learning here about Koilol. Halacha Yud Beis. Shvua Shelo Yechal Shemaina, guys, halt up now with the numbers. Guy says, I swear that I won't eat 8. Let's say I won't eat 8 te'enim. Then he makes an oath, I won't eat 9. Guys, halt up. Did the second oath add anything? No, it did not. Because of course, you can't eat 9. The only way you eat 9 is if you eat 8 and 7 and 6. It was already ushered for you to eat 8, so you were avada not allowed to eat 9. And the guy says, then sure, I won't eat 10. Says the Rambam, whether the guy ate 8 or whether he turned around and he ate 9 or whether he ate 10, he's only going to be chayv achas, like we explained. Because when he said, I won't eat 9, I won't eat 10, he's not adding anything. He was anyways usher to eat 10 because you can't eat 8. But what happens if he said it in the reverse order? Then they're all chal. Halacha Yud Gimel. I won't eat 10, which means he's allowed to eat 9. Then he makes another oath, I swear not to eat 9. Oh, then he makes an oath, I swear not to eat 8. If the guy eats 10, he's chayv 3. If he ate chayv shalosh, I'll call shvur achas. If he eats 9, he's chayv 2. And if each one is chayv achas, same principle, that as long as the second oath is koilol or add something, then the second one is chal, and if not, ein shvur, chala al shvur. Halacha Yudalot. Shvur shelo echol te'enim. I swear not to eat, again, the figs. V'chazav v'nishma shelo yochal te'enim v'anovim ke'echad. Ke'echad means that he writes here in the footnote 5, he takes an oath against eating an olive-sized portion of each type. Just to make that clear, not a kazayas of both of them together, but of each type. That's very important. So here again, since the second oath included another a kazayas of anavim, so we say it also takes hold on the te'enim. Now, shagal te'enim, he ate te'enim, the hifrish, carbon, and he, for what? For breaking the first oath. He didn't break the second oath because the second oath was not to eat a kazayas and a kazayas. Oh. If achar kach shogag v'ochel anovim, says the Rambam, einoi chayev al anovim. Why not? Because guys, the second oath was not to eat a kazayas of anovim and of te'enim. You understand? If he ate a kazayas of anovim, what did he break in the second oath? Chatzi shir of the second oath. And for chatzi shir, you don't chayv a penalty. Mipnei she'em kachatzi shir, te'em ivim kol chatzi shir. Beautiful. Chein halacha tezvav hanishba shelo yochel asar. Then he makes another oath v'nishba shelo yochel eser v'teisha. Eser v'teisha means 19. So the second oath is chal, because the second oath added something. But hold on. This guy ate 10 and he was mafresh carbon. So here again, you can argue, why don't we combine the 9 and the 10 and be mechayiv him for the second oath? No, the fact that, let's speak out also before, once you're mafresh the carbon, even though you didn't bring it yet, that closed the first oath. You violated it and you were mafresh the carbon for it. So now we view your eating of the additional 9 as a new violation. You can't combine it with the other 10. And so you didn't have 9 and 10, you only have 9. 9 is not a violation of the second oath because it's only chatzi shir of the second oath. Oh, now gewaltig. Guys, put on your heads. Here we're beginning to make oaths that are on condition. I swear that I won't eat the large one if I will eat the small one. Now let me use the following words. Which one would be the violation of the oath? Eating the large one. We're going to call the large one the kikar ha'isur. What activates that isur? Eating the small one. So let's call eating the small one the kikar haktana is called the kikar hatanai. When you eat the small one, you fulfill the Tanai, and that activates the oath against eating the big one. Now, says the Rambam, the Shochach Tanai be'ez Shochach Laktana, when he ate the small one, at that moment he forgot that he's eating the Kikar Tanai. And by eating it, he's going to activate a shvu on the big one. You're going to be chayiv. Because we don't need for the eating of the Tanai to be done b'mezid. It's irrelevant. For you to get punished, you have to violate the violation b'mezid, right? For you to get for you to be chayiv. Say that. So as long as the eating of the kikar gedela was b'mezid, you're going to be chayiv, even though you ate the Tanai b'shoigek. Now, halacha yud zayin. Achal asaktana, when you ate the small one in reverse, you knew the Tanai. In other words, you knew that you're doing something, you're fulfilling your condition, and through eating the kikar katana, now the shvu of the gedela will be chal. And then when he ate the gedela, for whatever reason, then he thought same thing, consistent. You're going to be potted. In other words, the need of knowledge is when you eat the isser, not when you eat the t'nai. Let's go to the next case. You'll be potted. If you eat both of them b'mezid, what's going to be the chiddush? No, we already said. If you ate the isur b'mezid, here's the word. Here comes an Rambam with the Gavaldik chiddush. You ate the first one b'mezid. When you ate the first one, if you did not yet eat the katana, you don't know yet whether this is a prohibited act. Furthermore, the Rambam actually paskins, as was the Rambam paskins, that hasra asafik is called a hasra. I know that we're going to learn today that Rambam apparently saying otherwise, but it's not correct. Generally, the Rambam subscribes to hasra asafik shema hasra, even though there are exceptions. This will be the rule, not the exception. So when you ate the kikar agadoila, you're eating it the base. So what are people telling you? Ooh, don't eat it, because if you're going to eat it, if later you're going to eat the katana, that's going to make your act of eating now into a prohibited act. Even though you don't know for sure whether it's going to happen or not, that's called a proper hasra. Then when the guy eats the other one, the second one, now the second one now has to be eaten the mezid. That's another word of the Rambam. It's if he ate the tanai koydem the isur, the tanai can be eaten even b'shgaga. But if he's doing the condition after the isur, for him to be chayiv, he has to know when he's eating the katana. Oh, now if you're going to eat the katana, now you're going to be in violation because you ate the gedola. He has to know that. But if he knew that, even though he ate the katana after the gedola, and again, even though that the hasra during the gedola you can argue is hasra safik, which it is, but the Rambam follows the general psak of the Rambam that hasra safik shema hasra. Again, we're going to have an exception to this hasra safik soon. Halacha yudches. He didn't specify which one is the Tanai, which one is the Isser. He said, he linked one with the other, whichever one. So here, he set it up in a way that the first one is the Tanai, and the second one will be the Isur. If the Tanai comes before the Isur, I don't care if the Tanai was B'shoigeg. The key is that when you eat the second one, if it's bizadan, you're going to be chayiv. This is moedik. Halacha yutes. Harishan bizadan. But if you eat the first one bizadan, evashniya b'shgaga, pater, stay in bizadan, chayiv. Halacha chav. Shvua she'oichal kikar zu'ayin. I'm taking a note that I will eat this loaf of bread. So the shvius bitoy lahaba. V'avan ayoyim v'layachal. And the day came and he didn't eat it. So what was his violation? His violation was from a inaction. So I guess Bishoigeg maybe Karban Oil. Even though his violation was through an inaction, doesn't affect his chiyuv for a carbon. But when it comes to getting malchus, ain't a loika. Sharei lo yosa maisa. Va'afal pi she'over al shvua sheker. Wow. Now, Chavra, what did we say yesterday? That we learned there's a limud that even though normally you're only chayv malchus for a lav sheyesh by ma'aser, we said shvua is an exception, but not in shvuas bitoy lahaba, in which the violation is inaction. I'll tell you like this. The Rambam is going to speak about some chafal, but let me say it by heart. if I am swearing about the past, when am I violating my oath? Whether I spoke about me doing or me not doing. When I articulate the oath, if I'm saying a nisht emes, at that time I was nishba lashek, and I'll be chayiv malchus, because here we consider the movement of your lips into a mice, which is a limud, a special limud we need for it. But if I'm making an oath about the future, then when I say the words, there's no sheker yet. The sheker will only come to be if I actually break the oath. There we say that if my breaking of the oath is through an inaction, I won't be chayiv malchus. Halacha chaf aleph. Let's read it inside. In other words, when I speak about the past, regardless, I will be chayiv malchus, because because if I'm speaking about the past, I'm swearing false if it's a sheker, whether it was about eating or not eating. My action is my oath, and while I swear, then it's already sheker. If it's a sheker, and I'm chayiv malchus. But the moment I'm swearing about the future, even if it turned out that I swore falsely, but when I was doing the ma'aser zuta of speaking, at that moment it wasn't a vada isur yet. I just took an oath. It wasn't a sheker yet. Right, gavaldik. Ain't a shvua sheker mishvas shvua. And therefore, even though later I violated it, if the later violation is fighted through an inaction, I won't be chayiv malchus. Very important rules. Halacha, final halacha chav beis says that Rambam misha amar lachaveiroi shvua shaloi oichal loch. Taking a note that I will not eat by you. I will not eat by your home. Or shvua shaloi loch, right? Or I'm prohibited. Shvua means I'm taking an oath that something will be prohibited if I'll eat by you. Both of these shvuas both mean that a friend is inviting you, you really want to get out of it, and you're making a statement for your friend to know that you cannot go eat by him. I won't be bound by an oath if I won't eat by you, which means if I'll eat by you, I will be bound by an oath. All of these are expressions of Isur. And therefore, here, like we began in this Perek, the oath was not to eat. The oath was not to eat. So Ein Chayiv Ala Achas. Ein Chayiv Ala Achas means it's included in all of the food that you're eating together. Again, for Korban, let's use the words Behelam Achas. For Malchus, Hasra Achas. Now, if every Kazayis will get another Hasra, then you'll be Chayiv for every act of Achil. But other than that, it's included all in one oath, and you're only Chayiv Ala Achas, Gavaldik, Chavra Perek. Perek is like Perek Dalid, unlike the next chapter, Vav, which will begin with a whole new topic. But this is still behemshich to what we began yesterday, beginning with Perek Aleph, the 4 types of oaths. So Perek Dalid was giving us a lot of detail by Shvuas Bitui. Perek is going to continue about Shvuas Bitui for the future and how we will differentiate whether I'm swearing about something that I will do, the koichi lasais, versus me swearing that's about something that someone else will do. I have no power about someone else's doing. Guys, when it comes to the past, it doesn't make a difference me or someone else. We pointed this out yesterday, because either it's emetz or a sheker. If I'm swearing about the past that you threw a stone or you didn't throw a stone, I know it's not my choice whether you did it or not, but it's a fact. Either you did it or you didn't. When it comes to the future, we are limiting the shvuas bitui only regarding something that the koichi lasois. We're going to be learning more about the rule of ein shvua chal al shvua. We're going to have the great halachas, which is based on the din. What happens if someone is nishba levatel mitzvah? We'll see what happens. How do we categorize that oath? And many scenarios of nishba levatel mitzvah. Perek Hey has 22 halachas, beginning with halacha al. Chavra, I know, I find today's 3 prakim like Gemara. There's a lot of, you have to push it. It's not just rules, but the Rambam himself is giving a lot of logic that's needed to understand. The Rambam is asking, why is this like this? Why is that like that? There's a lot of svara in today's Perek. Halacha aleph, misha nishba shezorak ish ploini tzoror laya. A person who's taking an oath regarding the past, regarding someone else's action. I swear that that person threw a pebble into the sea. And the guy didn't do it. Or he takes an oath that that person didn't do it, but a check it. Right? It's a shvuas bitoy misha avad v'uzarik. So even though it's about someone else, he'll be chayiv. Like we said, b'mezid malchus b'shoiga carbon oil b'yoyred. Ba'afal pisha einoi bila haba. Even though this same type of oath is not shaykh to be made regarding the future, like we spoke out on the intro. In other words, when it comes to swearing regarding the future, the only oath that's included in the geded and the category of shuvas bitoy, if it is something that b'koichi lasos. I can't take an oath for you to throw or for you not to throw. And even if I'm swearing about my children or about my wife, I won't be chayiv b'shvuas bitoy at all. Even though makas mardus, right? And nimsa goyrem l'shvua shav, explaining why you'll be chayiv makas mardus. So coming back, so you would think that if the same type of oath is not possible, bishat l'haba, maybe say the same type of oath is not shaykh l'sha'avar. So paskin the Rambam, we don't say that. Even though I can't make this oath l'haba, I could make it regarding the past. Now, hold on. The Rambam, before he goes on, he asks a question. What do you mean makas mardus? If you're telling me that I can't make an oath, I'm not adjuring you, and you're saying amen. I'm saying, I swear that you're going to throw something into the sea. Can't do that. Makas mardus, why makas mardus? L'chayda, that should be called the oath shav. Halacha beis. V'lama ein aloika mishu al shua shav. I'm saying, that's what I mean, like the Gemara. He's asking questions, he's giving answers. Because since it's possible that the other will do what I swore. You can't say it's mama shav. Maybe it's going to happen. I swear that you're going to learn tomorrow Shir Rambam. Maybe you will. V'nimsa. So let's go further. Now we're going to get into something a little bit very murky. We just quoted the explanation in the previous chapter. Forget about the case. It's that the Rambam paskins, which he does, that hasra safik shema hasra. Here the Rambam appears to say otherwise, but it's not so, because here will be the exceptional case where the Rambam, even the Rambam will hold that this type of hasra safik is not called hasra. The nimsa that keshamasrin boy be'eshen ishba. Regarding someone else's future action, you can't say that this is a vadai. You're taking an oath in vain. You can't say that. It's called asra safek. Now, really, I want you to know like this. Then we learned yesterday is shvua shav, the shot of shvua shav, the one that's mefureshes b'Torah, is one of the two. Either if you're taking an oath that's against something that's known to all, not only known to Chachamim. Even three commoners know it. Or when you're taking an oath, right, you're taking an oath against something that's known, or you're taking an oath for that which it's already known. So it's superfluous. Like we said, a person is swearing on a man that he's a man. That's a shvua shav. Person is swearing on a man he's a woman. That's a shvua shav. That's the type of shvua shav that is miforeshes b'Torah. This type of shvua shav that we're speaking about over here, that I'm taking an oath regarding your future action that I have no power over, even if you were to violate it, that's not the type of shvua shav that's miforeshes b'Torah. So therefore, a hasra'ah for something that's not miforeshes b'Torah, here the Rambam also will, so here he'll subscribe to the concept of asra safek. Maybe the guy will fulfill. If it's a lav mefarish b'Torah, even a asra safek will be an asra. But shvua shav, let's hazard this. The shvua shav that's meforeshes b'Torah is only two things. Either when I swear on something that's superfluous, because everyone knows that it is what I'm saying, or I'm swearing so against the reality, everyone knows that I'm swearing against the reality. This type of shvua shav you can argue is included in Shvuah Shav, but it's not Mefurash's Batoira. So there's not Shayach Hasra. So Taka, you get Makas Mardus, just explaining it, but not Malkus Midorais. You tell the person, don't swear regarding someone else's action because you don't have the power over it. Can't do that. And it's also Minatoira, but it's not Mefurash. Now, 1 second. If the guy took that oath and the other person did what I swore, I didn't do anything wrong. We're speaking about the case where the guy didn't do it. Okay. Elam Kain, Anu Amin is a whole different category. In other words, when I adjure you, when I'm mashpia you, of course, if you say Amin, then it's you took the oath. We're not speaking about that. We're speaking about me making a shvus bitui lahaba regarding someone else's action. Now, hold on. Now the Rambam writes like this. Now that we said that if I make an oath about your action or your inaction, and if you do what I swore, you will allow me not to violate the oath. So there's an inyan like a pichasidus for you to do it. I can't be machayiv you, but it's a good thing. If the other person actually fulfills the oath, because okay. Now, 1 second. The Medvar Mamurim goes, how do you know that other people are not mechuyev, that the others are not niskakim, is only b'shenish balda b'sheina b'reshusai. Going, for example, shenish b'ruven al Shimon. Reuven is making an oath. Shimon, I swear, will not do business over there, or Shimon won't eat meat. You're not the balabas over that. However, in nishbar Reuven shaloi kanishim bebesim. Reuven swears, I'm swearing that Shimon will not enter my house, or Shimon won't have enough from my property. And va'avar Shimon v'nichnas l'beis shel Reuven and Hanan v'nechas v'levidas Reuven. Reuven is patur because Reuven is onus. In other words, Shimon entered without his knowledge. Actually, Reuven did not even want for Shimon to enter. He made an oath for him not to enter, and Shimon will be chayiv. Ooh, that's a big chiddush. I'll speak out the chiddush in a moment. Because Shimon violated something. Now let me explain to you what that means. We're going to learn later in Hilchas Nadarim the big difference between a shvua and a neder. That a shvua is a chiyuv gavra. This is the origin of gavra and chavtz. Without the lumdus, pashat. Shvua means I will do or I won't do. A neder, by definition, means I'm addressing the object, and I'm saying that this object is permitted or prohibited on someone. Really, a neder is really only in the issur. So hold on a second. Here comes another word that Rambam is making this halacha based on the following. If I'm using the words of a shvua, but the only way for my words not to be nonsensical is that if you interpret my shvua to mean a neder, then we interpret it to mean a neder. I cannot make an oath, I swear Shimon won't have hana from my house. I can make a neder. It's my house. I can say that my house is asur on Shimon. So if I'm making I'm saying it b'lashon shvua, but it's something that's regarding my property that if I would have worded it in the way of a neder, then it would be chal, even though I spoke about an oath, a shvua, halacha says my shvua becomes a neder. Okay, that's the word. That's the meaning of bereshusai. Halacha. It's a very lumdish Pedic. Every halacha. Halacha. Shvua shaloi oichal. Person says, I swear that I will not eat. So it's future me. And I ate. But I ate inedible foods. I had shalent on Thursday from last Shabbos. Vishasamashkin she'elo shesiyam. Right? The Ashkenazi had arak potter. Like an Isai. It's not edible. It's not drinkable. Hold on. Right? If I ate that, so now that I'm going to write another din, that I'm going to be potted, not because it's inedible, but because of this concept of mushba ma'omed bahar Sinai. So as we learned in the previous chapter, we mentioned it yesterday, the general rule of ein shvua halal shvua doesn't only mean if, like we learned in the last chapter, I swear I won't eat. I swear I won't eat. Second shua is not chal. We're going to have more details about that in the end of the third chapter today. But since we all took an oath on Har Sinai not to eat nevelos and treifas, so my oath not to eat did not include that. Which is a big chiddush, because you can argue, when I took an oath not to eat, you can say it's a shvuas koilel, right? But we don't say that. We don't say that. Now, shvuas she'oichal, I swear that I will eat. Hear that? And v'ochal oichal and she'enu le'achir. V'shos ha'maz v'shosir. You know what? I fulfilled my oath, and therefore I won't be punished for not fulfilling my oath. The very fact that I ate something means I'm machshav it. Now, by the way, if a person, God forbid, ate nevelos and treifos, they'll get malchus in the chanami. He's just saying they'll get but for the shuas bitoy, here's achila. Ma'achar shem chashuvim etzloi. Therefore, achilas son, eating it like it's get to the yod b'am ka'achas. The fact that I'm eating it means I'm machshav it. Is a shuma achila. Aha. Now let's go to the past. Halacha. I am taking a note that I did not eat. So I did not eat, and I ate. But who? Here also I'm chai. It's a bigger chiddush, because here you can argue it's not that I ate it after my oath. I ate it yesterday. But still, the fact that I ate it means I'm machshav it. Sha'achilasan, even in the past, shema achila, shekfar hein chashuv and etzloi v'haraya shaharaya cholen. Great. Aval habo shenishma shelo yoichal. I swear I won't eat. Now, v'nikra mikra v'achola ein achil. That's the word. K'may shebeyarno. And let me say even better, the way the commentators say, why not, Danny, why didn't you say you're machshav it? You want to hear a good svara? Because I swear I won't eat. How can a person go out without eating? I'm starving. I'm only eating this food that's inedible because I was muchrach to eat it, because there was nothing else to eat. My eating it was not being machshav it. Since there was nothing else for me to eat, I ate that which is in royal achila, so that's not machshav it. Gewaldig. Halacha zayin. Shvua shaloi oichal kol shehu. Minevelos and treifas. Now hold on, you cannot say ein shvua halal shvua. That's mamash what we learned in the last chapter, because as far as the doiraisa punishment level is concerned, my isra is only on a kazayis. I'm saying shvua shaloi even kol shaloi treifas. V'achol pachas b'kazayis chayiv b'shvua. Sharei eina mushba al chatzi shir Har Sinai. And here's another big chiddush. The Rambam paskins like Rabbi Zajac. Rabbi Zajac holds chatzi shir also minat leila then. So you go lochayda mushba v'oimed. So here we see that mushba v'oimed Har Sinai. To apply that ain't shvua halal shvua are only for those yisurim that are explicit in the Torah. That's the word.
So the chatzi shir.
And the chatzi shir is not called something explicit. It's not just about the punishment. So therefore, we do say this shvua is chal. Halacha 8. Shvua she'oichal pachos mikazayis nevelo treif. Like we said, chayiv b'shvua. Now, what does chayiv b'shvua mean? I'm obligated to eat it. You know what we say? It's this person should eat it and not be over on his oath. Tell you why, Danny. If the guy will eat it, his lack of eating it will be a violation of an oath, which is chayiv malchus, right? His eating it will be in violation of another din trader of chatzi shir without malchus. So which you have to weigh. Here we weigh and let this guy do the lesser violation, even though it's through an action. That was his oath, not to eat dust. It is a suffix. So you understand the suffix, because to begin with, it's not royal achila. So if it's his swearing about it, that's machshav it. Maybe his eating a kol shu is also machshav it. Shema yisachai b'chol shu v'pnei she'ein zadar kal achila l'kedei latzricha yil. Very interesting. Gewaltig. Halachates. V'chein hanishba shelo lechol chatzon, not to eat one grape seed. Oh no, not to eat grape seeds. He didn't say one. He said chatzon. So same thing. No one eats grape seeds. So therefore, if you eat less than a kazayis, there's a doubt. Hoyo hanishba nazir, which is asur b'chatzon b'kazayis, and ba'achal pachas mikazayis, Ein noi chayev b'shvuas bitui. She'ein data b'shvuasai ela al kezayis. Here we know for sure that what did the Nazir mean? The Nazir only meant the kezayis. There's a concept, as we will be learning, people make oaths in order to be mizaris themselves. Right? The shvua, to heat tzaddik v'al tehi rosh. So since this guy is a Nazir cannot eat under the penalty of getting malchus, right? A kezayis. So we interpret that when the Nazir says shvua that I won't eat chatzim, he meant what he's already prohibited. So that's gavaldik. And therefore, if he made an oath to asr something that he's anyways asrin, what do we apply? The rule, ein shvua halal shvua. So since ein shvua halal shvua, he's for sure not going to be punished for the shvua's bitoy. Ein shvua halal olav. Now, lefikach, if peirash v'amar shvua shelo echol chatzon echad, now there's no suffix. Now we know that he's adding something, whether he's a nazir or not. He's saying one chatzon will be chayiv. Halachiyut. Shvua shelo echol tamarim unevelos and treifas. I will not eat dates and a vela and a treif. V'achol kezayis nevela oy treifa chayiv af mishum shvuas bitoy. Because even though nevela and treifa is asur, and we have the rule that what ain't shvua halal shvua, but we also have the rule of shvuas koilel. He added tamarim. Now that he added the tamarim, so misha halal tamarim we had in the last chapter is chal also on the nevelos and treifas. Sharei kol the varam hasurim and the varam hamaturim. Umatech shechal shvua la tamarim chalal the varam hasurim kumei shebiyarnu. Halacha Yud Aleph Abol Im Nishpa Shelo Yochal Nevelo Treifam.
So do we get two marks in that case?
Yes, he will. That's the whole point. If he got hasra for both, yes. If he swears not to eat Nevelo Treifam, which Uchayoisaba means any other item that's Asur Min HaToiram, Bein Ochal, Bein Loi Ochal, Ein Kan Chiyuv Shvua Klal, because of what? Ein Shvua Chala Al Shvua. Loi Shvuas Bitoi, and not Shvuas Shav. Halacha Yud Beis Nishpa Sheyerchal Levelo Treifam Chayitzim Emes Urei Toiram. If I swear in the opposite direction that I will eat Nevelo Treifam, here ain't Shvua Halal Shvua, but I made a Shvua Shav. Chaps Harei Ze Loike Mishum Shvua Shav. And now, guys, this is the rule. That's the big topic that we'll have from here to the end of the chapter. It's called Nishba Levatel Mitzvah. So Shvuas Bito is not chal, because I already took an oath on Har Sinai not to eat nevelos and treifas. So now I'm swearing I will eat nevelos and treifas. Shvuas Bito is not chal, but this is a Shvuas Shav, because that's the rule. Nishba Levatel HaMitzvahs. Don't forget, guys, we're learning oaths in which one evokes Hashem's names, even if it's not a shame that's kaddish, even if it's a kino, it doesn't matter. It's called an oath. That's called a Shvuas Shav. Halacha Yud Gimel. I swear that I will eat this loaf of bread. I swear that I won't eat this loaf of bread. I made both oaths. I swear that I will eat. Then I say, I swear that I won't eat it. No, I'm asking, what's the rule? If I swear that I eat it, I'm obligated to eat it, right? That's a din in the Torah. My second oath not to eat it, it's not chal, but it's called a shvua levatel mitzvah. Hashvia shvua shav. Sharei mitzvah olav la'oichla, because of his first oath. So now, based on the rule that we say that a shvua or nishba levatel mitzvah harezu shvua shav. So the moment I took the oath not to eat it, like al shvua shniyah. No, I don't get malchus when I eat it. By the way, I have to eat it. My first oath was to eat it. The point is that it's already a shav. Independent what I end up doing. Now, the im loyachala, I'm mostly going to be chai because I violated my first oath. How great is that? Halacha Yidal. Now let's go in the reverse. I swear that I won't eat it. Now I'm obligated by the Torah not to eat it. I'm not allowed to eat it. Then I make another oath. I swear that I will eat it. Again, we call this a shvua levatel mitzvah. Shniya shvua shav. Sharei zu asura olav. Why? Because his first oath was shaloi oichal. And like we mentioned before, I'm going to get malchus for shvua shav right away, whether I eat it or not. Now, what was my first oath? Not to eat it. So if I do eat it, I'm going to get malchus again. which I'm not allowed to be mevatel. So I'll be potter from Shuas Bitoy, but I will be like a Mishum Shuas Shav. For Oisa mitzvah, and really I'm obligated to do the mitzvah, even though I swore not to do it. I'm mechuyev to do the mitzvah. Kate said, for example, Kegon Shenishba, Shelo Yasa Sukkah, Shelo Yilbosh Tefillin, Shelo Yitain Tzedakah. You get malchus and put on tefillin. Echena Nishba Lachaveiroi, that Shelo Oyit Locha Eduzusha an the Yoida, I won't come and testify, which is a mitzvah. Or Shelo Oyid Locha, if I will know later. That's also, I can't make such an oath because if I know info, even though I don't know it now, but that info at some later point will be advantageous for you in a base, then I'm a choiv to come and say it. Immediately, even though it could be that I'll never even know information. Doesn't matter. I made a shvur to be mevatel limits. Taking an oath that I will never know testimony. I'll never know. Very good. As we learned in the beginning, the simple shvur shav is I'm making an oath that is blatantly known to be false. Not sheked. Sheked means that not everyone knows that it's false, or not everyone knew it when I made the oath. Making an oath that I will never know testimony is, you can't make such a statement. Maybe I will know testimony. Halacha tazayin. Now, let's go in the reverse. We spoke about people that take oaths to be mezadas themselves. Nishba l'kaim ha-mitzvah. But they didn't do the mitzvah. So the din is pater mishvuas bitoy. Now let's go like this. A couple of statements. First of all, why are you pater mishvuas bitoy, Danny? Because ain't shvua halal shvua. Good. But if ain't shvua halal shvua, why didn't you get malchus for shvua shav? You kidding? Because when I took the oath, I was going to do the mitzvah. How do you know I was not going to do the mitzvah? That's the whole point, like we mentioned. And furthermore, in other words, when I took the oath, it wasn't sheker. When I ended up, God forbid, not doing the mitzvah, it's a future violation through inaction. That's another topic we learned in the previous chapter, Dalit. You're not going to be chayiv. And the word says it's not called shvua shav because when you made the oath, you took nothing false. There was nothing. There wasn't case. And if God forbid, guys, the guy is violating, not keeping mitzvahs. Because of the same rule. In other words, this concept of ain't shvua halal even goes in this direction. As it says, lahara olahetiv, and as the Chazal speak out at this pasuk at the end of Vayikra is only speaking about divrei reshus. So taka people are nishba to be mezadis themselves, but it's not a bona fide shvuas bitoy, nor is it a shvua shav. Question is it an inyan to make such an oath? Well, sometimes, yeah, there is some, in some context, there is an inyan. In other contexts, we don't even do that. There's a whole topic we learn about this in I forgot that, I think it was in the Dorim, whether there's a mitzvah to make oaths to be mezadas for themselves to keep mitzvahs, whether there's an inyan. When the Rambam wrote in the Koseres that we learned yesterday, right? What was the fifth mitzvah in this chapter? The fifth mitzvah in this chapter was to swear in God's name be'emes. Let me just go back to those words over there. L'shava b'shmoi be'emes. So if I'm not mistaken, the Rambam writes in Sefer HaMitzvahs, that mitzvah is that whenever Beis Din is machayiv you to take an oath, when you're machayiv to take an oath, then there is an inyan, the fact that I'm taking an oath using God's name, saying the emes, that's a way that I'm machabed God's name. That's a way of giving kedusha and honor to God. You see, I'm taking an oath that I'm machayiv by saying God's name when it's the emes. Nishba l'kaim mitzvahs is not included in this l'shava b'shmai b'emes. Okay. L'fikach therefore. Kol hanishba lohara la'achedim. If I make an oath to harm any person, I'm not allowed to harm other people. So again, patim mishvahs bita. K'goyin shenishba she'yaka ploinim, or yikalalenu, or yigzulimenu, or yimserenu yadanos. So you're not. There's no shvahs bita. Mipnei shehu mitzuva shaloi lasnes, and the yirali. Because when it's like Kayam a mitzvah, Even we don't say it's called a shvuas shav. Why is it not a shvuas shav? Because bisha shenishba, you didn't say a sheker. Fakert, you're saying you're going to do a mitzvah. Since you're taking an oath to do something bad, we can say you're not allowed to do it. You're not going to do it. We know you're not going to do it. So when you make that oath, it's sheker. That's called shvuas shav. Great. Halacha Yud Zayin. Nishba lahar la'atzmai. The person made an oath to harm himself. Kigoin shenishba sheyachbal ba'atzmai. Afal pi she'eino reshoi. You would argue, so it should not be chal. So the Rambam says no. Here, shvua chal la'olav. Interesting. This type of oath will be chal. 1 second, guys. Ain't shvua chal al shvua? The answer is that since this prohibition is not explicitly written in the title, like we just spoke out, that mushba v'omer b'harsina by chatzi shir, for example. Here's another example. You don't have that explicitly that the isurim of Kabbalah is also for me against me. So therefore, my shvua is chal. And if I don't fulfill my oath, I'm going to be chayv mishum shvuas bitoy. And that's a big word. Nishba levatel ha-mitzvah is only that which is mefurish b'Torah. These are big klalim. Now, let's go in the reverse. Middle of halacha Yud Zayin. Nishba lehitiv la'cheirem atov shebiyadi la'asoi. So if I take an oath to do something that I'm able to do, like that I will speak to the governor on your behalf, or I'm going to give you honor, shvua chala olav. This is not a. Now, you have to chap the chiddush here. If I do you a favor, I'm doing an action that you can say is included in the general mitzvah of haftal reyacha kamoicha, but it's not the normal mitzvah shvua to sit in the sukkah. That's explicit in mefurish b'Torah. You have to sit in the sukkah. The Torah didn't tell me to speak to the governor on your behalf if I'm able to. It's included in the general. I got to do good to other people. So since it's not specified, the shvua is chal, and therefore now, guys, now something fascinating. Even if I'm taking an oath to violate a mitzvah, nishba shelo yochel matzah shana. Not I swear not to eat matzah on Pesach. That's called nishba lavatal. A mitzvah we said shvua shav. Here, no. I'm making an oath not to eat matzah the whole year, or not to eat matzah for 2 years. My oath is chal. Obviously, if the guy won't eat matzah, shkoyach, that he won't be violating shuas bitoy, but this chacham is going to be violating the mitzvah of eating matzah. I know that. And that will be, by the way, the topic of the next chapter. There's something called hataras shvuas, just like there is hataras adarim. This guy will have to be matzah the shvua. But if he won't do that, the shvua is chal. The ain't the shvua shav. Pesach, which we said, nishba levatel mitzvah becomes a shvua shav. No. He included times together. He said the whole year. Never to sit under the shade of a schach. Didn't specify the holiday of Sukkot. Or shaloyala olav beged shana ishtayim. This means, the way the commentators explain, a guy makes an oath never to affix tzitzis to his dalat kamfis beged. Now, guys, I know that it's a mitzvah to affix tzitzis to your dalat kamfis beged, but that's not going to be by a ksus laila. However you interpret it, there are certain times where even if you wear, right, we don't put tzitzis nowadays on your blanket. The blanket has 4 covers, and halachically, when you go to sleep, you are garbed in your blanket because it's a ksus laila. Since it was koilel a scenario where there is no mitzvah, in which the shvua is chal, mitoich it's chal there, it's chal also for the day dalat kamfis. Now again, for you to wear dalat kamfis without tzitzis, you're violating a mitzvah sasei. I know that, but the shvua is chal as well. Allah chiyutes nishba shehim niach tefillin hayoim. I take an oath that I put on tefillin. Oy shelo yiniach shenasativ pleni betzitzis lo nasativ. Anything that's about the past, what did we begin Peirik Daled with? Even though it's about someone else's action, but it's about the past. Because this oath is just about what he did. Even though it's about a mitzvah, it's not about the mitzvah. It happened already. It's about verbalizing something that happened in the past. not to be mekayim it, not to be mevatel it. He was just making an oath about something that happened. So yes, it's included in Shvuas Bitoy. Halacha chav nishba shelo yishan shlosh yomim, which is something that's impossible. Or shelo yerchel klum shivas yomim, something that's impossible. As we mentioned, when I take an oath that's blatantly known to be either not true or superfluous, so then shvuashav, you know what? At least let him try to keep it as much as he could. Let him hunger until when he can't. And when he has no more koyach, then he should eat, then he should sleep. No, we don't say that. Because since we know a person cannot go 72 hours without sleeping anything, from the outset, his oath is a shvuashav. He violated already. Gandik. The shvuah is not chal, and therefore he can eat and drink, sleep and drink anytime he wants right away. Nishba, if a guy takes an oath, now what did we learn in yesterday's third chapter? There's something called a shvuas haboi, an oath. That's an exaggeration. So we kept on emphasizing that if a person exaggerates in that which darkan shel bnei adam to exaggerate, which is when you see many people, you add the number. That's acceptable. But certain things are not acceptable, like over here. A person swears that he saw a camel flying in the air. To which he responds, no. I saw a very large bird, and because it was so large, I called it a camel. That is what I had in my mind. That interpretation is negated. And here we say, and we presume that not, even though it has to be pilvel liboy, and certain exaggerations are acceptable, we paskin not this. He had in mind a gomel, and therefore we're like final halach in this Perek halacha chav beis davar yidu etzel chachamim. Again, when we're speaking about the mefurish b'Torah shvuashav is an oath that is not, everyone knows it's not true, or everyone knows that it's true. What happens if a person takes an oath regarding something that is not everyone's knowledge? For example, it's known by the great chachamim, by the astronomers, we spoke out when we learned Kiddush HaChodesh. We spoke out actually in the beginning, in Nochas Deyas, how the Rambam explains how what modern science understands regarding the sun and what the Rambam says is exactly the same. But anyway, the words in Chazal is that the sun is 170 times larger. Now, guys, this is superfluous because Azoy is the emes. It's not shvuashav because not everyone knows that. Nishba echad mino am shasham gdol mino aretz eno loike mishum shvuashav. Afapi that it's taka emes. And normally, if you swear something that's completely superfluous, it's called an oath in vain, but it's not known to everyone. Even the sun, say the sun is larger. When you look up in the heavens, from our perspective, what does the sun look like? Not so big. From where we're standing, it's only known to people that know. It has to be three ordinary people, three people that are not scholars. Like the example that the Rambam keeps on giving, if a person swears regarding a man, I swear he's a man, that's called an oath in vain because it's Yadua Lakar. Or an Evan is an Evan. It's the opposite. If a guy makes an oath, that's not true. By saying that the sun is smaller than the artist, he won't be Chayv Malkus, even though he swore falsely. No, it's not Sheker Yadua Lakar. The Pnei She'in say Yadua Lachaladim. The Eino Kimisha Nishba Lishu Isha. And in his eyes, the sun looks smaller than the earth. Great. Mamish Gemara. Now we're going back a little bit to Rambam. Perek Vav. Halachas. Not so many questions and answers. We're moving on to a new topic. Many people are familiar with the words of Hataras Nedarim, which is something that we do every Erev Rosh Hashanah, Kol Nidrei. But actually, Kol Nidrei, we speak about Nedarim when we speak about Shavuos. We have something called Heter Shavuos. Heter Shavuos means that even if a person makes an oath, especially if it's regarding something that which will obligate him for the future, and he doesn't want to be bound by the oath, so there is a way for the person to release that oath. Now, the Torah explicitly only speaks about something very similar, but not the same, regarding a young girl or a wife, in which the father or the husband, at times, they also have a power to completely nullify the oath or the shvua or the neder that their spouse or daughter made. The Torah never speaks explicitly about such a power granted to the chacham mumcha or to the three hadyotis. Indeed, you should know that the Mishnah at the end of the first chapter of Chagiga says, Hataras Nadarim are in the category of Oisias Parchais Ba'avid, because there is no hint to this in the Torah. This is pure oral Torah, but we're going to learn pure oral Torah. We're going to learn about Heter Shvuos. We're going to learn about something that the Rambam calls Kiyum Shvuos. We'll interpret it in one way that it's interpreted. We're going to speak about a person who is able to make an oath in a way that he will no longer be able to be matter of the shvur. Means you can make an oath in a way that you can't undo it. Let's begin. Perek Vav has 18 halachas. It's relatively a shorter Perek, beginning with halacha Aleph. We'll finish perfectly. It says that Rambam Misha Nishba Shvuos Bitun. Person makes an oath and he regrets a shvur. And he sees Shumat Tayr. It's very difficult for him to keep this oath. He changed his mind. Or, no, a new factor that he did not know about now came to his attention. And because of this new factor, had he known it, he never would have made it. So the din is that you're not stuck forever. Guys, nishal in English means you make an appeal. Either you go to an expert in this field, or you go to a bezdin comprised even of only 3 people that are commoners. The Rambam adds, you can only go to a bezdin of 3 if you don't have this chacham, and they have the ability to be matir. Again, I know that people are more familiar with Hataras Nadarim, but we're learning about oaths. Same thing. It's called Heter Shvuos. And then we say, if you swore to do something, you don't have to do it. Or the opposite, or you're not bound by the oath at all. That's called Heter Shvuos. The Rambam writes in Halacha Beis, acknowledge, like we spoke out, right? The Mishnah calls this Poirches Ba'avid. These are letters that are floating in the air because you don't even have a hint to it in the Torah. The Dover is ein la'ikar klal b'Torah shebechsav. So what? But we got it from Moshe, from God. Elakach lomdim Moshe Rabbeinu epi Kabbalah. And that when it says in Parshas Matos, lo yachal devarei, don't desecrate your words. You cannot desecrate your words. Others can undo your oath. That's called desecrating. Don't forget, the oath also means really you're evoking God's name when you make the oath. If you regret it, if you retract it, you change your mind. And then another outside power, either a chacham or 3 adyotis can be mat. Now, there's something very important. Let me just word it like this. As we will learn in this chapter, the ability of Heter Shvuos is retroactive, but you have to regret it. And that's a huge difference between that which the Torah speaks about explicitly, which is the husband's power regarding certain oaths of his wife, the father's power regarding his daughter. There, the husband, the father, they don't have to ask the one who took the oath, do you regret it? Even if they want to keep that, they have the power to be meifed. Meifed means a complete nullification. Hataras chachamim is not nikanu lahabo. It is lemafreya, but there must be a reason given for it. Let's go. Halacha gimel. You cannot nullify your own oath. If there's someone great here, let that other person be involved in it. Wherever your teacher is here, it's forbidden for you to be matir without getting consent from your teacher. The one himself who took the oath, he should be the one coming in front of the chacham to be matir it, whether it's a man or a woman. And normally you have this concept of sending a proxy, not for this. With an exception, that that if it's a man, a guy's certain oaths during the first day, the husband could have been meifed, but he didn't. Here's the exception. He can go to a basin as long as he's not convening the basin. They are already convened and acting as a proxy for his wife. That's because not of shlichus. That's because a husband and the wife are considered one. Means he cannot be one of the three judges. That's what it means over here. He could act as ishtay kegufay to represent her mitzad ishtay kegufay to a ready preconvened based in. Now, what's the procedure of heter shvuos? Halacha, hey, I can say that there is an inyan to be matar shvuos. We begin Yom Kippur with it, and kol haloim et Torah ki'ilu. I think that learning the Spedic today is going to be a ruchnius inyan for all of us. That this should be matar the shvuos that have to be mutar. So let's go. Keitzad matirim like this. The guy who took the shvuah should go ideally to the expert. He has to know these halachas very well. If you don't have such a chacham, then go to three common yidden. And he begins by saying like this. He has to initiate. I made such and such an oath. Then and I changed my mind. I regret. And he has to give a justification. Had I known that I would have had tsar, had I known that this and that would have happened, I never would have taken the oath. If I would have known then what I know now, I never would have sworn. Yeah, that's called he has to give a justification, unlike the father and the husband. So either the chacham, or if it's three, the gadol of the shleisha. First, they're going to fight out who's the gadol. Never, this guy will be stuck with his oath until they decide who's the gadol, and then they have to ask him, "You regret it, or did you change your mind?" There's a lot of back and forth that you have in a beis din, just to cover all the base. That should be very clear. And he has to say yes. So now, either the words, they say the words mutter lach, it's released, right? Asur is you're bound in jail. Mutter means you're free from jail, free from the oath. Or macholach, it's absolved. And it doesn't have to be said in the holy tongue. It can be said in English, or in Portuguese, or in any other language. But if the chacham or the beis din uses words that the Torah uses in another context, which is the words of mufar, hafaras nedarim, mufar means nullified, or nekram, or it's uprooted, those words mean nothing. She'ein mefer, who has the power to nullify or to uproot? Only the husband and the father. Guys, don't understand pshat wrong. That many people have heard this. The husband, the father, they nullify it retroactively. The chacham is matir mekanu lahaba. No. The chacham is also matir retroactively. But for the chacham, you need to have a pesach. You need to have a charata. When a man has the right to nullify, to be mefered in the darim of one's wife, it's not only she doesn't have to be regretting, even if she wants for the vow to stand. That's why we use the words mefer. The word heter and mechila, release, absolution. Even though we said before that the husband cannot be one of the basins for his wife, fine, but relatives can be. You can do it at night. You can do it standing. What's the chiddush? Because you can say if it's three, it's a basin. You don't begin a din at night. No, she'ein heter zedin. Even though it says in the machzorim that it's ideally to begin kol nidrei before night, because you're making ataras nadarim. The fact is that most synagogues that make an auction, and they only make an auction when enough people are in the room, you have to have from whom to make the auction. So it's not that unusual that you begin kol nidrei at night. You can say kol nidrei at night, post fact. Lefikach nisha'olim l'shvois and adarim b'Shabbos. Another thing, because normally you can't convene a basin for Shabbos, but if there is a need for Shabbos, you can do it on Shabbos. It's important for Shabbos because there's a general rule also in the Troich b'Shabbos for a choyer. If it's not needed for Shabbos. Even if there was a time for you to be matir the shvuah the nether before Shabbos, if it's regarding Shabbos, you can do it on Shabbos. Like a guy makes a guy took a shvuah not to drink wine. Can you make kiddush on bread? Yes, you could. But making kiddush on wine is a tzorech Shabbos. You can do it on Shabbos. Like
yesterday when we mentioned the person can take it back.
that's correct.
Is this the same
No.
fact as that?
Well, then it's different. You're mated it. But when you're mated it goes retroactive. Like halacha zayin. Reuven sheishbia l'Shimon. When Reuven adjures Shimon, mashbia you, as we learned also yesterday, right? It was, I think, in the second chapter. And Shimon said, Amen. Shimon was makabel the shvua. The nicham Shimon al shvuasa. So you would say, okay, so go to a base then. No. Reuven has to be present. Why does he have to be present? Because if Reuven won't be present, it's called chshad. Reuven knows that he made Shimon take the oath. If Shimon is going to be mated it, and then Reuven will see Shimon doing something against the oath, understand, they'll be choished him. If it was regarding someone else, like we learned also that we interpret that the mikaneder and the shvuas chal, the nichem, if it involves someone else, the chachamim should only be mated the neder if Shimon is present. It has to be done in his presence. And here again, you just see why you have to have a ideal mumcha. Three adyotis won't know this, for example. So a second party doesn't matter. No, but that's mamash. The Rambam is not using the word chashad. It means chashad. Or whether you make a oath berabim, even if you took an oath b'shem hamayuched, b'shem Elokei Yisrael, and if you have this regret, then the din is you may be released. We don't say it's a shvua, you took God's name in vain. You took an oath, yeah. You were bound by the oath, yeah. And now you did hataras nedarim. However, making an oath in public is very different than making an oath al das rabim. Nishba al das rabim. Or neder al das rabim means I'm making it with their intent. Then you're trapped by it. Then ein matin lo olam. How ironic. Lo olam means what? Never, ever, ever. But yeah, what's the one exception? The dvar mitzvah. Remember the Gemara had a story about a teacher that hit the kids. I think one of the kids died. Was the greatest teacher in the world, but he was a hitter. So they made us an oath, al das rabim, he should never teach. And they brought him back. No one was better than him. All right, Nebuch on the kids, but Gavaldik for the kids. They had a great teacher. Depends how you look at it. Behave and don't get beaten. Halacha tes. Ketzah. Nishba v'tol shvasim b'das rabim shelo yehena pleni lo oilam. That's an example. And people, that's the case in the Gemara, or you guys are moil. For whatever reason, they made up a shvua. No one can use him, but he's the only moil around. It's about a mitzvah. It's a need mitzvah related. To do a shchita. Guys, you have to be mated. Of course, you have to be mated, but you could be mated even though it was made al das rabim. And and the okay, a new topic, kiyum shavuos. Do you have to be mekayim a shvua? Of course not. If you make an oath, as long as you were not mated it, it's mukoyim v'oimet. Nevertheless, this is called kiyum shtaris. There are different ways of learning this halacha. We're going to follow one of them anyways. Halacha yud. Person made an oath and he did not regret it. Based on l'kayim shvuasai. Guys, we're going to teach l'kayim shvuasai means I'm asking based on to be mater the shvua, but I don't regret it. That's the meaning here of l'kayim shvuasai. L'kayim actually means to be mavatal it, but he's not giving, he's saying I don't regret it. So like this. If nevertheless being mated it will cause something good to happen, it will bring peace between man and his wife. It's going to bring peace between man and man. Or in the opposite. Now the word kiyum means literally not being mated it is going to bring about sinful behavior. It's going to bring about fighting. It's going to give continuity to fighting. You still can never be mated a shvua without a justification. So even though this guy says, I'm not mischaret mei karoi, learn from what we say out of Rosh Hashanah, the guy said, I'm not mischared. So they try to get him to be mischared. They make an effort. He has to be mischared, but they make the effort. It's called, they open up a door for him. And they begin to discuss with him. And they begin to explain to him, listen, you know how this shvua is causing a fight? You want to cause a fight? You want to have shalom bayis? Yeah. Oh, they have to get this guy to say, I regret it.
He's coming to the kaim.
He's kaim to be mavatalit. I'm saying the way we're learning pshat. Listen to what I'm saying. He's kaim to the bezin by saying, I want you to be mater shvua, but I'm not mischadet. I'm not going to do. That's the way we're going to work. So if there's a reason, then they give him a regret. They try to inspire him to regret. And indeed, he has to regret, even though they initiated it. But the im loy nicham ba'amad b'miriyoi, then hadeze yukayim shvuasi. Here it means they're not mater shvua. They're not makayim. They're just not mater. That's pshat nesalach. Ketzah. Nishbal shigar says shishta. A guy makes a shvua to divorce his wife, or a yidden cannot have benefit from my property. I'm making an oath not to eat meat, not to drink wine for 30 days. And he's coming to the Bezdin. Bezdin, can you release me from my shvua? I don't regret it, but release me from it. Don't forget, it's retroactive. Regret means, had I known this, I never would have made it. He's not saying that. Many people do such a tshuva. They tell God, I don't regret what I did. It was amazing 10 years. From now on, I want to be on your team. That's what's going on over here. So they tell him, Bini, listen, if you're going to divorce your wife, you know how bad it is? They're gonna think that you divorced your wife because you suspected her of committing adultery. People are gonna suspect your kids are mamzedim, right? Or they're gonna call the kids bnei gerusha, and maybe you're gonna divorce her and she's gonna marry someone else, and then you're gonna want to remarry her. And even if the second husband is out of the picture, you won't be allowed to. No, they try to inspire him to say, "You're right. I regret making the oath." A guy makes an oath. No one can benefit from my property. They're gonna tell him 1 second. Tomorrow your friend will need your help, and you'll have a mitzvah. I'll help your brother live. Strengthen him. Open up your hand. Why would you do that? Or this guy makes an oath not to eat meat, not to drink wine for 30 days. That's not what God wants from us. God wants from us in moderation, of course. The guy told us, Yom Tov is going to come, and maybe in the case where Yom Tov is within 30 days. And you're not going to fulfill properly Simchas Yom Tov and Oinig Shabbos if you're not going to eat meat and drink wine. So even though he did not begin with Charat, if I would have known this, I never would have made the oath. Then they're matir. The bottom line is that he has to say I'm mischaret. The Im Omar Afal Pikein Loy Nechamti V'Roitza Ani B'Cholzeh. V'Roitza Ani B'Cholzeh means I don't regret that I made it. I don't regret that I made it. They're not going to be matir. That's the meaning of Mekayim. Again, unlike Hafaras Nadarim, that's the key. Hafaras Nadarim is the wife who made the neder can be saying, I want this to stand. Not only am I not mischaret, I want to be bound. He has the power to be made. Now, when you're encouraging someone, the guy who's coming cannot bring into the basin. You know why I regret? Because something happened after I made the oath. He says, had I known then what I know now, I never would have made it. But that knowledge has to be about something that was always there. If when the guy made the oath, there was no reason for him to regret it. Something later came into the world, that's not enough because it has to be retroactive. If Hatabas Nadarim would have been Mekano Lahaba, who cares? Now that this new thing came into the world, I don't want to have the oath going forward. That's not Hataras Nadarim. Hataras Nadarim is going to retroactively nullify. So the reason has to be something that was always there. Ketzah, Nishba, Shulei, and Pliny. And after he made the oath, that guy becomes a sofer. Right? First of all, this guy doesn't want him to be a sofer. So theoretically, he doesn't even want to have enough from him. Had I known that later this guy would have been a sofer, I would not have made an oath not to have enough from him. Because really, But if, oh, 1 second, you don't offer that as a reason. You don't offer that as a reason. It's when there's a reason why to get a guy to be matter. You're trying to open up for him. You open up a justification. You don't open up with something that only happened later. But if the guy comes himself and says, had I known that this guy would have become a sofer, I never would have made it, then you can be matter.
This is not the same as telling a husband, don't divorce your wife because maybe if she gets married, you'll never be able to remarry her. That husband that she might marry in the future is something happening in the future.
That's correct. That's not called noida. Noida means that between the oath and your coming here, something new came into the world. That's not shaykh in that case. Here, a guy makes an oath not to have enough from Reuven. Then Reuven becomes the sefer ha'ir. Everyone needs Reuven. Then this guy's coming to Beis Din. And he's not saying that he regrets it. Beis Din is trying to find a justification. They don't tell him, had you known, he later would have become a sefer.
Justification.
For Beis Din to give him, but he can give it to himself. Now, halacha yud gimel. Me,
So how does he get out of it then?
if they try to find, he can use it. He can say it himself. Or Beis Din can find other reasons. Allah, and if not, they won't. Halacha yud gimel. Me shenish bal davar. Now listen to this guy. Now a guy takes a double oath. First he takes an oath. Then he learned the Rambam in the morning, and he learned that you can be matir shvua. This guy doesn't want to have that option open. So you know what he says? After he makes the oath, he makes another oath. I make an oath that I will not be matir my first oath. Is he bound by it? No. You know why? Be matir the second oath, and then be matir the first oath. V'nicham harei nishal al shvua achroina tchila shenifra shul yatir, and then yishal al rishon. It has to be in that order. Halacha yudalid nishba. I swear not to speak to that person. V'nishba acharkach. And then he says like this, oath number 2, that if I'm going to make a heter shvuos, al shvuozu v'yatira. If I'm going to make a heter shvuos, then I swear I will never drink wine. In other words, the second oath is only going to be chal if he's going to be matir the first oath. Let me ask you a question. Can you be matir a shvua that wasn't chal yet? No, that will be the salah. So if the guy wants to be matir the first oath, he has to first do that, and only then can he be matir the second oath. You can be matir the oath about drinking wine, but you can't do that first. You can never be matir a shvua before it's chal. So it has to be in this order. First, nishal ala shvua rishon el matira, and only afterwards v'achar kach yishal ala shniya, and not the other way around. Why not? Because she'ein matina neder shvua shadayin leicholu. How great is this rule? Lefikach, for example, another application of this: if a guy is standing in the month of Nisan and he makes an oath that will only go into effect from the beginning of Rosh Chodesh Iyar, shelo yechol basar for 30 days from Rosh Chodesh Iyar, and he regrets it in the month of Nisan, you can't go now to a Beis Din to be matir that shvua. In initial achi konasir. Another example. Obviously, there's reasons why the Rambam has to give many examples, but every case is different. Allah as well. Nishba shelo yehen leploni. He will not benefit from. So I will not benefit from Reuven. Or shelo yohane lechacham sheishar leyal shvuazu. I will not benefit from the chacham that will release me. I have to be nishal or shoyna, and only afterwards ashniya. Another example. Allah tazayin, where you have to do the second only when it's chal. Nishba shelo yohane leploni. I swear that I will not benefit from so and so. Varehu nazir. And then I say, if I will be matir the first shvua, I will become a nazir. So then, in nishal shvuazu, so first of all, you have to be shoyel al shvua tchila, and then you can be matir the nazirus. And by the way, you should just know that kabbalah, that you can be matir nazirus is a neder, so you can be matir it. I take an oath that I will not eat today. Then I repeat, then I repeat, what did we learn? Pedic Dalit, Pedic K, and also yesterday, Ein Shvua Halal Shvua. What did we learn? That if a guy eats, he's only going to be Chayv 1. But hold on. Now let's merge Hataras Nadarim. Now, the vart is that Ein Shvua Halal Shvua doesn't mean when the guy took the second oath, it's nothing. The oath is hovering like a lion over its prey. Because of the din that ain't shvua halal shvua, it's unable to come into effect. Since hataras nedarim is retroactive, so once you remove the first oath, the second oath is going to be chal. Oish amar al kikarzu shvua shelo yechlena shvua shelo yechlena shvua shelo yechlena, and the nishal al shvua shayna and takabahutra. Now hareis chayiv mishal shvua shniya. Gewaltig. Degene nishal al shniya, you'll be chayiv on the third. If you go and you're only shoyl on the third bilvad, chayiv mishum l'shayna shniya. Nishal al shniya chayiv mishum l'shayna. Imkei mipnei ma'amru ein shvua chala shvua. It means only that if you were not shoyl for any of them and you violated your oath, even though you made 3 oaths, you're only going to be chayiv 1. Beautiful. Final halacha yutches. Mi shenishba shvuas bitel ahabo. A shvuas bitel regarding the future, and v'shikah b'shvuas. Another manifestation that number one, when the chachamim are matir the neder, taka you need to have a nechama charata, but it's retroactive. But there's another din. Just like you cannot be matir the neder, the shvua before the shvua is chal. What happens if the shvua was chal and the shvua was violated and the shvua was dealt with? The punishment was dealt with already. Now there's nothing left to undo. So let's go. A guy was meshak. For example, and he ate the bread. After he ate it, before he brought the carbon, if he was a shaygik, before he gets the malchus, if he was a mazit, he already violated it. You know what happens? Now, there's 2 chidushim. Number one, like we mentioned, is very important. Hataras nedarim is lemafrei, but you can only be matir something when there's something left. One would have thought that once you violated the shvua, it's done already. No, the fact that I'm not yet punished, there is a she'edis, there's a remnant of my oath. There was something left, the mechusar kippurim, and therefore I can be shoyel. And you know what? Once I'm shoyel, it goes retroactive. If it goes retroactive, I'm not going to be chayiv. It's up until the end, even if they already tied me to the post, but they didn't begin whipping. The initial, but now let's go. What is the Rambam implying? The moment they gave this guy 1 knack, even though they made the estimation and he can get the 39 or the triplets, whatever it is. Here we say that once they began, even though they didn't finish, there's nothing left yet. That's the word. So you can't be matir a shvua prior to a din chal. You can't be matir a shvua after it's dealt with. But after the sin, prior to the kapara, you could. Beautiful. Gavaldik 3 prakim, God willing to be continued. That was great. I'm telling you, this was like learning Gemara.
After the punishment?
In a good way. It's always good.
There's nothing